Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the lecture. Today's topic is MCQs on MSc. Myself, Dr. Sanjeevani Panigrai, Assistant Professor in Department of Psychiatry. As you might remember, last lecture we had discussed MSc, that is Mental Status Examination in Psychiatry. Views on that and also discussing the results. So here we go. The first question is, a 25-year woman complained of intense depressed mood for 6 months with inability to enjoy previously pleasurable activities. This symptom is known as, and the options are A. Anhedonia, B. Avolition, C. Apathy, and D. Motivation. So the correct answer is A. Anhedonia. Now why is it so? We'll just look at the brief definitions. As we discussed in the question, anhedonia is loss of interest in pleasurable activity, like activities which the patient was finding previously pleasurable and of interest, like maybe singing, dancing, watching TV, going out with friends. The patient does not find them pleasurable anymore. So it is mostly seen in schizophrenia and depression. And avolition is inability to initiate movement or action. Like patient will be sitting at one place and they will not be moving and they will not be able to start a work. And apathy is lack of feeling, emotion, interest or concern. Like patient is apathetic. There is no interest. There is no internal feeling or the desire to do anything. Amotivation is there is a lack of motivation to engage in any activity. There will be no motivation, like even some motivation, they are not able to get up from their bed in the morning. They are not able to do activities of daily living even. So it is also seen in schizophrenia and depression. Okay, so we'll go on to the next question. What will you ask to test the abstract thinking of the person? And the options are A. You found a wallet on the roadside. What will you do next? And B option is, tell me the difference between bird and aeroplane. C option is, what is the time now? And D option is, do 100 minus 7 for 5 steps. And the correct answer is, it is B. Tell me the difference between a bird and aeroplane. And we'll discuss next why is it so. Normally option A we use, like you found a wallet on the roadside, what will you do next? Or some other proverb, like, or some other situation, like there is a fire in a neighbor's house, what will you do next? So these kind of situations we give to test the judgment of a patient. So it is used for test judgment, like what will the normal person say? Like a normal person might say, I found a wallet, so I'll go to the police station, see if there's any identity card inside, any phone number. I might myself call and return it to that person. So those are normal responses. So we test the test judgment of the patient. And tell me the difference between bird and aeroplane. That is what is used to test the abstract thinking. The differences, the similarities, the difference and similarity at a very conceptual level. Okay. So those are used to test the abstract thinking. And then what is the time now? It is to check the orientation. Orientation to time, we'll ask the time. Orientation to place, we'll ask the place. Which place is this? To person. So this is how we check the orientation. This orientation is mostly deranged in delirium. But I'm digressing. I'm just give briefly what is what. Then do 100 minus 7 for 5 steps. That is used to check attention. You will ask the patient to subtract 7 from 100, so it will be 93, then again repeat. A normal person will be able to do it for 5 times, but a patient whose attention is impaired may not be able to. We'll go to the next question. The next question is, what is alexithymia? So alexithymia is, and the options are A feeling of intense rapture, B, pathological sadness, C, affective flattening, or D, inability to recognize and describe feeling. So, which of these is alexithymia? So, the correct answer is, the alexithymia term denotes, the correct answer is D, that is inability to recognize and describe feeling. So, now I will go into the explanation of each of these. Ecstasy is said when feeling of intense rapture, it is called ecstasy. It is mostly seen in mania, and it is mostly a pathological feeling because the patient is at a very high level of happiness, which is normally very seldom found in normal people. And pathological sadness. Why is it pathological sadness? Because normally all of us are sad at one point or another in our life, or at one point or another in time. So not all sadness is depression, because depression has other criteria also, and one of them is pathological sadness. The sadness lasts almost throughout the day and minimum at least for 14 days to fulfill the criteria for depression. So pathological sadness is depression and seen in major depressive disorder. Affective flattening. What is affective flattening? Affect is the emotions we see on the face of the patient. So, like I am talking to you, you can see my emotions on my face. My facial expressions is changing as I am speaking, you know. And sometimes when you are having conversations with normal people, sometimes we discuss funny things, so they will be laughing, or we will discussing sad things, so they might become sad. You can see the sadness on their face, in their eyes, or there might be some, you know, altercation, some quarrel. So those are normal, you know, affect. But affective flattening is, even if there is some discussion on different topics, there will not be much change in the effect. It will be kind of dull, blunted. So you can see that the patients on the face, there are not emotions are expressed, not much emotions are expressed. So there is a kind of a lack of expression of emotions on the face. So that is affective flattening or blunted effect, and mostly it is seen in schizophrenia and sometimes also in depression. Like inability to recognize and describe feelings, that is alexithymia. The patient will not be able to describe. Like you will ask the patient in mental status examination, how are you feeling, or what are your emotions inside, and they will not be able to say. They will not be able to recognize even. Like they don't know if they are sad or if they are happy or if they are angry. So they will may say I don't know, or they may not even give any reply. So that is alexithymia. It is mostly seen in major depressive disorder and also sometimes in schizophrenia. We'll go to next question. The next question is ambivalence is most commonly seen in, and the different options are A. Schizophrenia, B. Hysteria, C. Mania, and D. OCD. And the answer is A. Schizophrenia. Ambivalence is a state of having simultaneous conflicting reactions, beliefs or feelings towards same object. Like there may be like also or dislike also. There may be appealing also. It is mostly seen in schizophrenia and OCD. And ambivalence is something even in normal people we see sometimes, but they are to the pathological level. So much so that people with these disorders cannot even take any decision because of their ambivalent tendency. They are not able to take decision and it affects their everyday life. MB tendency is also the tendency to act in opposite ways or directions in situations of conflict and under the influence of opposing motivational forces. Like something is very interesting, so I will try to do it, but at the same time it will be kind of repelling, so I will even not do it. And this creates a lot of confusion, and the result is that I am not able to do anything. Video clip check. Okay, this is an interesting question because it has a picture and many of you might identify with this also. A person is able to see human face on the surface of Mars. So this is an example of what? The options are A. Delusion, B. Hallucination, C. Misidentification, or D. Pareidolia. Like even it happens to many of us. Like you are outside and there are clouds in the sky, and you look at the clouds and you see some faces. Like see, it is there is an animal there is a human face there. Or in wooden furniture it is very commonly seen because the those circles will be there, and in that also you can see faces. So it is not always pathological. Sometimes even in normal people it happens, but it is a very interesting phenomenon. So what is it called? And the answer is pareidolia. Pareidolia is a form of illusion in which there is incorrect perception of a stimulus as an object, pattern or meaning known to the observer, such as seeing shapes in clouds, seeing faces in inanimate objects or abstract patterns, or hearing hidden messages in music. So when this is so much that it is affecting daily life, and the person actually believes that, like all of us see faces in clouds, but none of it actually believe that there is a face in cloud. But if it is so pathological that a patient starts believing that, then it is a symptom of disorder. So see, we have both images we have put them side by side. The same image when seen under telescope with higher magnification and resolution. So we see that there is an elevation, and there are some certain elevations and depressions which gives the impression that it is a face with eyes and nose. So our next question is, hallucination is a disorder of, and the options are A, thought, B, perception, C, memory, or D, intelligence. And the answer is B, perception. Thought disorders, as we have discussed, those are of two types. Those are formal thought disorders and content disorders. We'll go into details after a few more questions. And perception is there are different types: hallucination, illusion. We'll also go into that. And memory and intelligence, I'll be talking further as you go on to the next slides. So the next question is, which is not a perceptual experience? And the options are hallucination, illusion, delusion, or imagery. And the answer is delusion. Why? Because delusion is an abnormality in thought, and hallucination, illusion, and imagery, these are like perceptual experiences. So the next question is, altered perception of real object. There is a real object, but you are perceiving it as something else. So, which is, what is this called? The options are illusion, delusion, C is hallucination, or D is delirium. And the answer is A, illusion. Then the next question on this is, false sense of perception without any external object or stimulus is known as A, illusion, B, impulse, C, hallucination, D, phobia. And the answer is C, hallucination. Next question is, which is not true about hallucination? Options are A, it is vivid as normal stimulus, B, it occurs in inner subjective space, C, it is independent of will of observer, or D, it occurs in absence of perceptual stimulus. I will again read the options since it is a long question. A is, it is as vivid as a normal stimulus, B is, it occurs in inner subjective space, C is, it is independent of will of observer, and D is, it occurs in absence of perceptual stimulus, which is not true about hallucination. And the answer is, it occurs in the inner subjective space. So now we'll go, these all questions will bunch together because they were on the similar topic. Now I'll go into the details of this. So hallucination is false sense of perception without any external object or stimulus. It is not in the subjective space, it is vivid, it is detailed, it is clear as real perception, and it is not under voluntary willful control. So in hallucination, there is actually no stimulus, nothing, but still the patient perceives that yes, there is something, like there is a voice, there is a an image, or there is a person, and there is a taste, there is a sensation. The patient feels it is real, like we feel things, they feel it is as real objects. That is why when you tell them it is false, they most likely won't believe you, because to them it is true. And it is not occurring in inner subjective space. Inner subjective space means it is not occurring, somewhere in the thoughts or somewhere, in the imagination. Like we might imagine, if you ask me, imagine a voice or, imagine a person in front of you, you can imagine it. But we are very well aware that that is our imagination. It is, in our inner subjective experience. I am creating that. But hallucination is not like that. Hallucination occurs in the outer space, like how we see I might see a person sitting on the bench in the outer space. The hallucination is similarly in the outer space. It is external to me. So it appears very real as if a person were actually sitting there. That's why if somebody says that is not a real thing, that is your experience or that is your disorder, most probably the patient will not believe it, because for them it is very, very real. And also any voluntary willful control. Like suppose I am imagining something and you ask me to stop, I can stop imagining. You will say, okay ma'am, imagining someone is singing, I'll start imagining, and then if you ask me to stop, I can stop. But the same is not true for hallucination. In hallucination, suppose I am hearing a singing voice or I am hearing someone abusing me, and that voice is as real to me as if someone were actually abusing me. I can actually hear it. Like somebody is there. And if you tell me, okay, you stop imagining, I cannot stop it. I cannot stop it, and that's why it is very real to me. So the patient will say, no, it is not my disorder because I am not able to stop it. Something is actually there. Somebody is actually talking to me, or I can actually see something. For them, it is very real. It is happening outside their body. It is not a subjective experience, and they are not able to control it at all. So, what is illusion? Illusion is false perception of real object or stimulus that is colored by emotions. Like suppose I am going, I am going alone on a road in a dark night and it is raining and wind is blowing and I am in a hurry to reach home. Since it has gotten very dark and late at night, so I am scared also. That's what if something comes now or somebody comes now. Some people are afraid of ghosts, some are afraid of robbers, and suddenly there is, somebody has put the clothes to dry outside and I can see that the clothes are moving. So in my panic, in my fear, and because of, less light, I might get startled and I might think, if I'm afraid of ghosts, I might think, oh, a ghost is coming behind me, I must run. Or if I'm afraid of robbers, I might think, oh, their robber is coming and I must run. But actually it is just a piece of cloth fluttering in the wind, right? So that is what is illusion. That is not pathological. It is actually something is there and then we think of it as something else. Also, you might have seen that sometimes at night it might have happened to you. You go and there is, you enter a dark room and you have not yet switched on the light. There is some light in the room, maybe from the window, moonlight outside or some other street light. And then you see a rope or something on the bed. You don't know it's a rope. Suddenly your first thing is, oh, it's snake. There's a snake on my bed. And then you hurriedly switch on the light. And then you see, oh, it was a rope, silly me, how could I think like that? But that is very much normal. So that is illusion. A stimulus is very much there, but you are thinking it as something else and it is colored by your emotions. Like if you are not afraid, you might not see a ghost or a robber. Suppose you are going in a group of friends, it is raining, it is dark. It is windy, but you are with the friends, you are safe. So I will not think of a fluttering, cloth as ghost or something. So it is colored by your emotions. And what is delusion? Delusion is false, firm, fixed belief which is not shared by social, cultural or educational background and cannot be changed even after giving contradictory evidence. So delusion, the belief is very much firm and fixed, like the person really believes it. You might give them logic, you might give them proof, you might tell them, you might bring other people to support your side of the story, but they will not believe you. And of course, it is not shared by social, cultural, or educational background. Mostly delusions, there are different types. We might go into that later. Like I will give you one example. People believe in God. Some people might say there is no God, but that is not a delusion, okay? Even if, because it is shared culturally. Many people in culture believe there is a God. So those of us who don't believe, we cannot say it is a delusion, that person is deluded, because it is socially and culturally acceptable. But when the delusion is something like that, like delusion of persecution is very commonly seen in schizophrenia or in other psychotic disorders. So in that disorder, patient will be like, I know my neighbor is planning against me, my neighbor is telling things against me, he is going to the police against me. And you can ask the patient's relatives, those who are staying with him, that is it true, is this happening? And we get the history like that, no, this is not happening, this is all in the patient's thoughts. That is what the patient believes. And then there will be other systematic thing, like the patient might have gone to the terrace and the neighbor will be in his or her terrace and maybe he is talking to somebody on the phone. So the patient will believe, see, he is against me and he is talking that he has a plan against me and this is his communication with the police or communication with another person. And maybe the neighbor will occasionally smile, like we smile at people we know. So if the neighbor smiles at this person, you will see how he is smiling at me. It means there is some, malevolent thought inside his head, there is some plan, now I am sure. These are all proofs. So actually, if you tell them, no, this is normal thing, like people go to the terrace for talking on the phone, people smile at people they know, but the patient will never believe you. He will say, no, doctor, you don't know, this is what is happening. See, he went there and he talked to that person, that may be normal. Maybe the neighbor has gone out to buy vegetables, but he will say, see, he had gone to the police station to complain against me, he is talking against me and he is smiling maliciously, and I am sure that he is totally planning to kill me or harm me. So this is how delusion is. the belief is very firm. Even the relatives of the patient will be telling him that no, this is not true, he's a nice person, he's not planning against you, they will not believe. So this belief is not shared by social, cultural, educational background. I mean the people around that patient or from his social, cultural background, they are not agreeing with that thought, but still the patient has a fixed belief that, and you also cannot change it even after giving contradictory evidence. Then you will give evidence, see the neighbor had helped you on that day, no, so how can he be against you because he is helping you? Or the neighbor is such a nice person, like maybe the neighbor is a doctor and see how doctor help people, so he cannot be against you. You will give many evidence, but the patient will never believe you. So that is what a delusion is. It is a, thought, it is a problem with the thought. So like we discussed hallucination and illusion, those are perceptual problems, but abnormality of thought content. So delusion is abnormality of thought content, like the content of the thought is abnormal. So it is delusion. Then imagery is incomplete, not clear, dependent on will, exist in subjective space, in constants, have to be created. Imagery is nothing but kind of an imagination. Like I talked at the beginning, like if you ask me to, ma'am, imagine a tree. So I can very well imagine a tree. It will be like, yeah, it will be brown color and then green leaves are there, ripe mangoes are there, there are branches. So I can very well imagine it, but I cannot imagine it very clearly. Maybe people who are artists can because they draw from imagination, but not most people, they can't. And I know I am imagining it. I can stop imagination if I wish to. And I know it is in my imagination, it is in my subjective place, not actually. I cannot see a tree in front of me. I am only imagining it in my mind. And every time you ask me, I have to reimagine it. It's not like once I imagine it, it is there. But hallucination is very much there. Like a tree will be actually there, and it will be like a real tree is there. So a normal perception is, I see a black cloud in the sky. I see a black cloud with a face in the sky. And it's an illusion or misinterpreted perception, because the cloud is actually there, you are not imagining it, but you see a face. So that is illusion, because it happens in the presence of a real stimulus. I see a dragon with flames in the sky. So obviously that is a false perception, because there is no dragon actually, but they are seeing, patient is seeing it, and of course there are flames also. So this is hallucination, because there is no stimulus for this. Then we'll go to another interesting question.
We carry forward. There are some more MCQs. As you see, this time we have taken this lecture to a different note, as all the UGs are interested in the MCQs for the preparations of the PG NEET. We are doing this kind of session, and maybe at the end we will get some feedback whether you like this session or not. That would be wonderful. I also have some UG or interns here, so you also get involved in this. That would be wonderful. So you may even answer the questions, whichever are asked. Right. Mental status examination is a very long area, and as psychiatry is very different subject wise, it's very interesting as far as these phenomenology is concerned, because there are so many terminologies. And so the baseline is to crack MCQs is that you understand these terminologies. Actually, they are very much English words. Only if you are deriving from other Greek or Latin or other languages, or German language many a times, because so many scientists have been from German origin. So you know these words even from the dictionaries, and many a times you know what it means, right? But so this is another question: what is a hypnopompic phenomenon? So the answer can be from this: A, if experienced while falling asleep; B, if experienced while awakening; C, after any head trauma it occurs; and D, after convulsion. Any of you? What is the answer? A, B, C, D? Pardon? While awakening. Very good. How do we move from here? Okay, right. So the answer is experience while awakening. Just before getting out of the sleep, many a times, even it is a normal phenomenon also, many a times we experience. And there is also another experience, as it is written, that while falling asleep. Now that is called hypnagogic hallucination. Many a times you feel like somebody is calling out on you, or you see some images, but it is for fraction of a second. It just does not stay once you are awake or once you actually are totally asleep, right? So hypnagogic are while going into the sleep, and hypnopompic are while coming out of the sleep. Another question is, loosening of association is an example of A, formal thought disorder; B, Schneiderian first-line symptoms; C, perseveration; and D, concrete thinking. A, B, C, D, anybody? What's the answer? Loosening of association is example of formal thought disorder, right? Thought or thinking has many subsections in which you actually assess abnormality. And one of it is content. Discussed. Another is a formal thought disorder. Formation of thought. That means how the thoughts are getting formed. Thinking is actually very difficult to define also, but while how it gets formed, there are several theories of it. And if you read Fish, which is a book on phenomenology or psychopathology, you may understand it better. But for right now, what I can say is that stream, form, possession and content. These are the four areas in which we assess thinking. Stream is something that means that how it goes, how your thinking actually travels. No, it should be smooth, it should be in a direction, it should be connected, and that is what is called stream of thinking. People understand who are listening to you through your speech, how your thoughts are going from one to the other, how they are connected, right? But the stream is only an outward expression. When you go deeper, when actually it breaks, or when people don't understand it, or when your thinking process itself is actually problematic, then it is called formation disorder. That means the way the thinking is formed, that is deranged. There can be many types of formal thought disorder also. Maybe sometime we'll go into the details of it. But here, this is the abnormality. When we say loosening of association, that means the associations between the words or the phrases or the sentences or the themes. That's where the problem lies. And so, the person who is listening to this another person is not able to make sense what the person is actually talking about. And so, it is called the thought disorder of formation, right? Loosening of association. Then there are Schneiderian first-rank symptoms, which is actually also some of the criteria or the symptoms are formation of thinking disorder, but there are several other perceptual and other content symptoms are also taken into account. Perseveration is something which actually, after getting the different stimulus or different question also, the person is giving the similar or same answer. You are asking him, what is your name? He will say Pooja. Then you say, what do you do? say puja. So like that, you keep on asking something else, but the answer remains the same. It is perseveration. It can also be in behavioral perseveration. Sometimes you give them a writing command also. In that also you will be able to see perseveration, that the same theme is repeating. That is perseveration, right? And concrete thinking and abstract thinking maybe later on we will be talking about. So another question is, which of the following is not a disorder of form of thought? As we discussed the formation of thought, you have to say which one is not that. One is derailment, B tangentiality, C thought block, and D loosening of association. Anybody? Yes, yes. C thought block. Excellent, you are right. Why? Because derailment, as the word suggests, that your thought process is actually jumping rails or from one rail track to another. That means from one topic to the other. Though you started out with another aim or a direction or some question or some goal, but it does not stay there and it really derails and it reaches somewhere else. So that is also one of the formal thought disorder. Another is tangentiality. Though you see some connections, there is some connection, but still you are deviating from that goal. You are still, a person who is listening to this person is able to actually understand that what is happening and the goal is not reached. Though he may be just near to the goal, but he is not. So that is tangentiality. The third, loosening of association, we have discussed. And the thought block is a very unique phenomenon which can only be subjectively experienced and expressed. Nobody as such from objective evidence can establish that there is a thought block unless and until the person or patient himself or reveals, You can't say that there is a thought block. There has to be some that person telling you that suddenly the thought which was going on, it just vanished from my mind. The person, what you observe is he or she will stop talking, maybe midway while the person is talking. But that can be anything else, right? Unless until person tells you that no, the thought dissolved, the thought stopped, now there is a vacuum or a blank in my mind. That's what is thought block. Very, very rarely seen and seen more in schizophrenia as such, right? So there are many thought disorders or thinking disorders as written here. There is a formal thought disorder in which all these come. Tangentiality, circumstantiality. Circumstantiality means that a person is beating around the bush, is going into the details, though it is around the goal, but it's not very concrete or exact or really pinpointing the goal or really what you want the answer from that person or really you want him or her to, the person describes so many other things, details, etc., but really not reaching the goal many a times. Though you will understand what the person wants to say, right? Derailment we have discussed. Omissions, definitely there will be a lot of omissions in between. So again this also talk with omissions will appear like a loosening of association also. And substitution. The person will be substituting one thing from the other. The thoughts are so jumbled up. There can be something called word salad also. That also his term is there. Word salad. That means so many words are actually thrown in, but they hardly make any sense out of the whole thing, right? So these are the examples of formal thought disorder. Perceptual disorders, definitely you have seen so many hallucinations, illusions, imagery, etc. you have discussed. Disorder of thought content. Content in that also, especially delusions, and there are many types of delusions which you will be able to get from so many books also, or maybe when we discuss schizophrenia, we'll be discussing that more in detail. There is also something called possession of thinking. Every one of us who thinks would think that these are the thoughts which are my own thoughts, which have originated in my own mind, right? All of us feel so. But there are several disorders of thought in which the person loses this ownership. Many a times, or the possession it is called. Many a times it is obsession is one of the example. Right? The person says, though it originates in my mind, but the control over it, or I want to control it, I want to stop it, I am not able to. Right? So this is one example of the disorder of possession of thought. And there is also disorder of continuity. Again, it is as a flight of idea, or flight of idea seen in mania, wherein because my attention concentration is not so on the contrary, attention actually span is very low, and my distraction is so high that I go from one to the other topic. If I see something, I start talking on that. So there is some connection in the person's own mind, because the person perceives or gets another stimulus and he jumps onto that. Right? But many a times flight of ideas can be so severe that it can appear as a loosening of association, unless and until we can be very careful, or when the person improves little bit, maybe the flight of idea gets little controlled, and then you will find that no, this is a person of mania, and there is no loosening of association. It must be flight of ideas at that time also. Right? So, another question, there is a persistent belief in something which is not a fact. Okay, it's a very simple question. Is it an illusion, hallucination, delusion, or delirium? It's a delusion. Very good. That's right. It's a persistent belief. As Dr. Sanjeevati discussed, it is a false, firm, fixed belief, unshakable, and not shared by the culture. Right? Okay, so anything to do with thinking, other disorder, actually illusions and hallucination are perceptual disorders, and a delirium is another state of mind wherein there is a orientation problem mainly, or there is a confusion, right? So it's not that answer is not that. Okay. Another question, a man has an argument with his neighbor, and next day he feels that the police is behind him. So what type of delusion it is? It's a delusion of infidelity, delusion of reference, delusion of persecution, or delusion of grandiosity. Anybody? Persecution. Excellent. Talia. Right? So what is happening here? The person had an argument. Well, that is okay. It's a premise. And so another belief develops on it. What the person feels, that the police is behind him, which has probably no connection, or actually it is not happening. And so the persecution is the theme. So every delusion or the type of delusion is actually named out of its theme. What is a theme? To persecute, meaning to be after somebody, to be having intention of harming, or even maybe killing or murdering, all those kind of things. So to persecute, from that the word comes delusion of persecution. And what I want to say here is that any delusion, there will be 100 people having delusion of persecution, but every person expressing that would be very different, right? So when you go by the person's life is different, his or her experiences are different, his knowledge levels are different, and so based on that, the person actually expresses what he or she is believing or thinking about, right? So a delusion of persecution can be expressed very differently. Somebody will say that there are ghosts around me who are trying to kill me. To somebody will say the police is after me. To somebody will say that somebody has put a chip in my brain, and so he or she is actually trying to know what is happening. He or she is following me, etc., etc. So there can be umpteen number. Every patient's experience is very unique, and the expression also is very unique. But ultimately, when you actually get the theme of it, you will be able to know what is a theme, and you will be able to typify the delusion, right? What is a delusion of infidelity? Infidelity means person feeling that the partner or a spouse is not fidel, right? And he or she is having, maybe they will express that he or she is having some extramarital relationships, or he or she is not faithful to me, etc. Right? The delusion of reference. Again, this comes in very, very different expressions. Reference means person feels that I am at the center of reference and anything and everything happening around may be centered or attached or referred to me. So the person may express that people are talking about me. Or there will be also some expressions like in the TV this message is coming or this song is being played, it's only played for me, or the message is pointing towards me, right? Or maybe even they may say that the whole world is around, is actually and things like that. So the person feels that I am referred to and I am the center, or people are actually interested in me somehow, and that is what is delusion of reference. And delusion of grandiosity. Grandiose means having the idea that my ability or identity is something beyond my own actual real self. And if I believe that I am the king, or I have ability of even fighting with 10 people, so these kind of expressions can be very, very different, but it's a delusion of grandiosity. Okay. Next, so the answer is delusion of persecution here. Okay. Next question is delusion is not seen in. Okay, so these are the four disorders of psychiatry. So where the delusion is not seen: delirium, anxiety, schizophrenia, mania. Anybody? The answer? Anxiety. Excellent. Anxiety is the answer. Why? Another thing I want to tell here is that in psychiatry there is nothing like a one particular phenomenon which is pathognomonic for one particular disorder. Any of the phenomenology or any symptoms or signs can be seen in any of the other disorders also, right? So a delusion can be seen in many disorders. It can be seen in schizophrenia, it can be seen in mania, it can be seen in depression, it can be seen with patients with delirium or organic medical conditions when the people go into delirious phases. So there are so many, even the drug induced or the substances which they take, induced intoxications, or even in withdrawal, we see in alcohol withdrawal psychotic conditions. So in any of these conditions, you will be able to see delusions, right? But it's the anxiety in which, this is a common mental disorder, in anxiety disorders usually seen, right? So we go ahead. Delusion of grandiosity most commonly is seen in, okay, probably we have given the answer: hypomania, bipolar mood disorder mania, paranoid schizophrenia, and kleptomania. Anybody? Answer? Mania, right. So why not hypomania? Okay. See, this is one of the criterion, right? If there is a delusion, that means it's a psychotic feature. And once the psychotic feature or the delusion of grandiosity is there, you don't diagnose the person with hypomania. Hypomania is actually a subdued phase or state like mania. But there are no delusions in it. Okay, so it's not seen in hypomania. But I would also be happy to say that paranoid schizophrenia also you will get sometimes delusion of grandiosity. Though here it's written most commonly seen, your answer is right. So in your MCQs, you usually pick up what is the most appropriate answer, right? But many a times in psychiatry, it can be very confusing also. So you always go for what exactly is asked for, right? Okay. And kleptomania, though there is a word mania in it, but it is actually not, right? What is kleptomania? It is an impulse control disorder wherein the person has an impulse to steal, right? Okay, fine. Okay, so the answer is mania. Another following are the correctly matched except. So these are the pairs in which one is not correctly matched, you have to find out. Schizophrenia, auditory hallucination. OCD, infidelity. Alcohol withdrawal, Lilliputian hallucination. Depression, guilt feeling. Which pair is not matched? Anybody? OCD and infidelity. In alcohol withdrawal, many times the hallucinations are there, and even Lilliputian hallucinations can be seen more than alcohol. There are certain psychedelic drugs which actually can give you Lilliputian hallucination. Lilliputian, have you heard the story of Gulliver's Travels? And the Lilliputs are the very small, human, or maybe humans. So Lilliputian hallucinations are many times in some ophthalmic disorder also. Lilliputian hallucinations can be there, right? So infidelity does not go hand in hand. Rest is okay, right? Okay, fine. So this is a summing up slide, I think. So we have perceptual disorders in which hallucinations are there, illusions are there. And there is the third term called pseudo hallucinations, which we may discuss. Hallucinations can be seen in any of the sensory modalities. Definitely there are 5 senses which are picking up the external stimuli, which is visual, auditory, tactile, gustatory and olfactory, right? So any of these senses you can get hallucinations. Somebody may say that I am getting a smell, very bad smell, or which actually may not be existing, or I get a bitter taste in my mouth and so I'm poisoned and things like that. Some people can talk like that. So these are hallucinatory experiences. There are certain hallucinatory experiences other than these 5 senses also. You must remember that they are complex hallucinations. That means that there can be more than one modality hallucinations which may be occurring, and the person may be describing. Many people describe that somebody is actually sitting on my chest and is actually strangulating me. So these kind of experiences, they can say, I can really feel the pressure on me, I can smell him or her, things like that. So there can be very complex experiences which also have perceptual quality in it, and they are also hallucinations, right? And many times, sometimes from within, there are certain sensations from within our body also, right? And I distinctly remember a person, a young boy coming to me saying, and he used to actually keep his fingers into his throat and trying to pull out something, and he would vomit out on that also. And after asking several times, he ultimately said that, that I have a snake within me. I can really feel that snake. It comes, up to my throat, and so I want to pull it out. He would eat nuts and bolts and blades also to kill that snake, etc. So a very complex kind of a perceptual experience this person had, and added to that, many times in schizophrenia, along with the perceptual disturbance, which can be sometimes the first or the primary experience, and over that, secondarily, people can develop a delusional belief, or a belief system which is actually trying to explain these perceptual experiences, right? Many times these delusions are, you are not able to separate whether the perceptual disturbance is there or it's a delusional belief, or what came first. Many times it can be very challenging. But for you to understand, mostly the hallucinations are seen in schizophrenia or mania or depression or any other psychotic condition. Maybe it can be acute or brief psychotic disorders or substance-induced or organic disorders in which there are psychotic phenomena. Hallucinations are very, very common phenomena. And illusions, as discussed, pareidolia, there can be completion illusion. Sometimes an incomplete figure, you see it complete, so that is also an illusion. Many times affect illusion. Your emotional state actually leads to a lot of perceptions which may not be existing. They can be called affective illusions. Illusions are very normal phenomena also, because immediately usually we recognize there is an as if quality. As if in the sense that immediately you feel, oh, I thought as if I heard the bell, as if I saw this, saw a snake or something like that. So that's what is very normal, but many times seen in some substance intoxications also. Delusion, we have already discussed. There are many types of delusions also, which is a thought disorder and thought disorder of content especially, right? Seen in schizophrenia, delusional disorders, all psychotic disorders, delusions are also seen. But a pseudo hallucination is actually called pseudo because many a time people with schizophrenia, they are on the verge of improving, and they also sometimes get the insight into the experiences that yes, I hear the voices, but they are not the real voices. Or many times in the substance intoxications or such conditions also, people retain their insight, and many times they feel they are really actually not real, and in these conditions we can call them pseudo hallucinations, right? There are a few more MCQs also which we will go through. What is wrong about mental status examination? So these are some statements written what is not applying to mental status examination. It has objective observation of a clinician. It has subjective description given by patient. It is part of the psychiatric history taking. It is scored out of 30. Anybody? Which is the wrong statement here? Anyone? Okay, so D is wrong. Actually, it was very starkly obvious in this MCQ, but let me explain that mental status examination is something which actually a clinician starts as soon as the person enters or is in the view of the clinician. Though the history taking will unfold gradually, but during the whole of history also, what the clinician or the expert is doing is actually understanding how the person is perceiving, thinking, feeling, judging, etc. So all the functions of mind, even during history taking also, while the patient is describing his problems also, the clinician is doing. So it is very much part of the mental status examination, right? Though the score out of 30 is actually sometimes maybe you do it wrong, you take this also because MMSC and MSc, these questions are taken from your earlier year papers. So otherwise a psychiatrist will not frame a question like this, but it's out of your books. So scored out of 30 is only to actually distract you from MSc and MMSc. MMSc is mini mental state examination, which maybe we'll deal with when we are dealing with other cognitive disorders like dementia or delirium. But a few things about mental status examination. As I said, it is done throughout the interview. Subjective as well as objective assessment, both are actually taken into cognizance and put in the mental status examination. So if report format usually is quite detailed, but for you all to know that MSc usually has these format, though it is not that first you will actually examine the appearance and behavior, then only the perception and then only the thoughts. As I said, it occurs immediately and simultaneously, continuously and throughout the interview. So appearance, behavior, speech, mood, thinking, perception, attention, memory, then there are several other cognitive functions which you check, judgment, etc. and insight, right? So all that is part of your MSc, right? So MSc also, you have to know that there are expert interpretations and usage of terminologies, right? So whatever the patient is saying, he will not tell you that he has delusion or hallucination. It is your interpretation or the clinician's interpretation which is ultimately put in the mental status examination, and it has no scoring as such. But MMSc can be part of Mini mental status examination is actually a 30 score small scale available to check the person's orientation and those kind of things, and which can have a score. Okay? Right. Okay. And I think this is the last. Digit span test assesses your learning capacity, immediate recall, orientation, or both B and C. Anybody? No? Digit span, what does it do? The digit span test is actually you are given, or the person or patient is given 3, 4, 5 digits, right? And the person has to repeat. And there can be digit forward as well as digit backward also, right? So that is a digit span test. So what does it check is the immediate recall. Not only that, it also checks the attention, though it is not written here, but it also checks the attention, right? So it's not about the learning, immediate recall. I think that is all we have for today, but I would like to get the feedback from all of you that whether you like these kind of sessions or not. Then what we'll do is every session we'll plan one theory class and another would be followed by the MCQs, which will be useful for your PG NEET. Thank you. Thank you very much.